This morning, the Princess of Wales back on the global stage. Kate's first international trip since her cancer recovery, stepping out on her own, a research trip of sorts, learning about a cause she cares deeply about.
Thousands of people have packed the square. People are hanging out the windows, and you can see her right here meeting some of her littlest fans.
Catherine had endured whispers, criticism, and palace interference without allowing the public to see her anger. But this was different. A private note she had written directly to Queen Camilla, carefully worded, deeply personal, and never intended for another pair of eyes, had been leaked by royal aides. Its subject was explosive: access to jewels connected to the late Queen, royal tradition, and Catherine's future. When Kate discovered the betrayal, her restraint finally broke. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine was preparing for a private engagement when her communications secretary entered, carrying a printed copy of the note. The Princess of Wales, the title held by the heir's wife, had expected that message to remain between two women. Instead, a palace journalist had quoted its sharpest lines and was preparing to publish the rest. She read the first paragraph, stopped, and asked, "Who else has seen this?" Her voice stayed low, but her fingers tightened around the pages. The betrayal cut deeper than embarrassment. Catherine had written to Camilla privately to avoid a public clash and protect the family from another spectacle. She objected to several historic jewels being reassigned without consulting her, especially pieces linked to the late Queen and to the role she may one day hold. The royal collection, the artworks and ceremonial objects held by the monarch for the nation, was never meant to feel like a private prize. Yet one sentence had been pulled from the note and sharpened into an accusation. Catherine had written that royal jewels should never become personal rewards or private inheritance. Stripped of its appeal for fairness, the line made her sound as though she were accusing the queen consort of greed. Camilla, the king's wife who shares ceremonial duties but does not rule, now appeared to be the target of a direct attack. Only a small circle had handled the correspondence, and the leaked formatting carried a chilling clue. The copy had been scanned inside Camilla's household, not Catherine's office. Catherine placed the pages flat on the table. Then she removed her engagement ring, steadied her breathing, and told her secretary to cancel every non-essential meeting. She was no longer responding as a wounded relative. She was preparing as a future queen. Before she could confront Camilla, William received a documented warning from a senior palace official. The note had not been leaked merely to embarrass his wife. Someone wanted the dispute fully public, and once the prince understood that, the question became terrifyingly clear. Who stood to gain from turning two royal women against each other? The note was about jewels, but the real conflict had never been about diamonds. For Camilla, the royal collection represented acceptance after decades of public rejection. For Catherine, it represented duty still waiting ahead of her. Both women understood the symbolism. Both knew that every tiara, necklace, and brooch carried a message about rank, memory, and succession. Now their private disagreement had exposed the deepest insecurity each had tried to conceal. Catherine had spent years entering royal life carefully. She rarely demanded precedence, rarely challenged senior figures, and often accepted changes without complaint. To her, the jewels were not personal possessions. They were historical instruments, entrusted to whoever carried the crown's image and responsibilities. The royal collection meant the body of ceremonial jewels, artworks, and heirlooms held by the monarch for national and royal use. Catherine believed those pieces should reflect continuity, not private rivalry. Camilla saw the same objects through a far more painful history. She remembered the years when crowds rejected her, newspapers mocked her, and royal circles treated her presence as a problem to be managed. Wearing jewels connected to earlier queens had become proof that the institution had finally accepted her. So when she read the leaked extracts beside a trusted dresser, she did not see a request for balance. She saw an accusation of greed. Camilla told the attendant that Catherine could never understand what it had cost her to survive long enough to wear those pieces without condemnation. Catherine felt wounded for a different reason. Her patience had been mistaken for weakness. She had accepted delayed access, altered plans, and countless quiet compromises, but the sudden reassignment of several important pieces felt deliberate. It seemed designed to remind her that her future position remained under someone else's control. William refused to accept the leak at face value. He compared the published extracts with Catherine's handwritten copy and immediately noticed what had disappeared. The strongest lines had been preserved. The gentler ending had been removed. Catherine had closed the note by offering Camilla a private meeting and suggesting a shared arrangement that would respect the Queen Consort's present role while recognizing her own future responsibilities. That passage never reached the press. William found his wife beside an open jewelry reference book, staring at a photograph of Queen Elizabeth wearing one of the disputed brooches. He closed the book gently and said, "This is no longer about what you wrote. It is about what they want people to believe you wrote." Catherine's anger softened into hurt. She admitted that she had written the message as an act of respect, not an ultimatum. William then demanded the original document log. What he discovered changed everything. The note had entered palace records days before the leak, immediately after an earlier confrontation no one had publicly acknowledged. To understand the betrayal, they would have to return to the ceremony where the first jewel was removed, the first warning was ignored, and the first line was crossed. Every palace crisis has a moment that seems insignificant until everything collapses around it. In this case, it happened during preparations for a state banquet at Buckingham Palace. A velvet tray was opened, a historic necklace was presented, and Catherine was told that the arrangement had changed. No debate, no explanation, just a quiet instruction, delivered as though the future Princess of Wales had no right to ask why. That was the moment the private note became inevitable. 3 weeks before the leak, Catherine arrived expecting to wear a diamond necklace traditionally associated with the direct line of succession. A state banquet is a formal dinner hosted by the monarch for visiting leaders, where every detail carries diplomatic and royal meaning. Catherine had already worn the matching earrings during an earlier reception, and palace planners had selected the full set to suggest continuity between past and future. Then a senior dresser quietly informed her that Camilla had reserved the necklace for herself. Catherine did not argue in front of the attendants. She watched as the velvet tray was removed, then asked everyone except her private secretary to leave. The humiliation was controlled, but it was real. She had accepted changes before. She had stepped back when protocol demanded it. This time, however, the decision felt less like tradition and more like a warning. Camilla defended the choice later that evening. Speaking privately with a senior aide, the Queen Consort insisted that no jewel should be treated as belonging to someone who had not yet reached the throne. She was angry that Catherine's team had planned the complete set without seeking her final approval. To her, the decision was about authority. To Catherine, it was about being deliberately diminished. The point of no return came before the banquet. Catherine met Camilla in a palace corridor and asked whether the necklace had been withdrawn on purpose. The older royal did not soften her reply. It was never yours to lose. Camilla walked into the reception before Catherine could answer. One of her aides later recorded the exchange in an internal briefing note, a private document used to summarize sensitive events for senior palace staff. That single act transformed a family disagreement into an official household matter. The conflict now had a record, a version, and an audience beyond the two women involved. Catherine soon discovered the necklace was not the only piece affected. A sapphire brooch closely linked to Queen Elizabeth had also been scheduled for Camilla's exclusive use across several future engagements. Back at Kensington Palace, Catherine began writing by hand. She tore up the first version because it sounded too angry, then produced a calmer note built around duty, history, and mutual respect. The message reached Camilla the next morning. Before she could answer, an aide ordered it scanned, logged, and circulated far more widely than protocol required. By the time Catherine learned how far her words had traveled, courtesy had already failed, and the next conversation would not happen through letters, secretaries, or carefully chosen phrases. Catherine did not summon Camilla through official channels. She did not send another note. She went directly to the Queen Consort's private sitting room and asked every aide to leave. When the door closed, there were no secretaries to soften the language, no courtiers to control the record, and no cameras to reward restraint. For the first time, Kate confronted her face to face and demanded to know who had betrayed her. Catherine carried two versions of the same message, the original handwritten note and the leaked copy that had reached the press. Camilla was visibly surprised by the visit, but she refused to surrender control of the conversation. The Queen Consort asked why the princess had arrived without warning. Catherine answered by placing both documents side by side and pointing to the final paragraph that had vanished. Someone had edited her words. Catherine explained that she could endure disagreement over jewels, precedence, and ceremony. Precedence is the formal order that determines where members of the royal family stand, sit, and appear during official duties. She could even accept decisions she considered unfair. What she would not accept was private correspondence being stripped of its gentler meaning and used to portray her as grasping, impatient, or disrespectful. Camilla denied authorizing the leak. Her answer came quickly, but her confidence weakened when Catherine asked why the note had been scanned and circulated through her household instead of answered privately. The older royal insisted that her staff had viewed the message as an official challenge requiring advice. Catherine did not accept that explanation. Camilla reached toward the leaked pages, but Catherine placed her palm over them. "No, you have already had my words. Now I need yours." The balance of the room shifted. Camilla admitted discussing the note with her senior private secretary and communications advisor, though she continued to deny passing it to journalists. A private secretary is the senior official who manages a royal's correspondence, schedule, and sensitive decisions. Her denial was precise, almost too precise. She had not leaked the document herself, but she had allowed others to treat it as something larger than a family appeal. Camilla finally revealed the motive. Her team believed Catherine was trying to establish control over the royal collection before William became king. They saw the note as a political challenge to the Queen's authority, not an attempt to preserve respect between two women. For one brief moment, Camilla's anger gave way to fear. She understood that her advisors may have acted in her name while leaving her morally exposed. Catherine demanded the name of every aide who had accessed the note. Camilla warned that a full investigation could damage Charles and destabilize both households. Catherine left without answering. As the door opened, the king entered from the adjoining room. His expression made one fact unmistakable. He had heard enough. The dispute had crossed into his private world, forcing Charles to decide whether protecting Camilla now meant confronting the machinery that had acted around her. Charles had spent years defending Camilla from a hostile world. Now he faced a threat from inside the institution he controlled. If he dismissed the leak as a minor household mistake, he would wound Catherine and alienate William. If he ordered a full investigation, he could expose the Queen Consort's closest advisors and raise questions about her judgment. The king sat between his wife and his heir, holding a file that could fracture the monarchy whichever way he turned. Charles understood where formal power rested. The royal collection, the historic jewels, artworks, and ceremonial objects held by the sovereign, remained under his authority. Yet access was shaped by tradition, household planning, and final approval from the monarch. That arrangement was meant to preserve order. Instead, it had created competing camps around the people closest to the crown. Charles had given separate royal households wide freedom because he believed distance would reduce conflict. In practice, that freedom allowed aides to become defenders, strategists, and gatekeepers. Each office protected its principal's image. Each watched the others for signs of advantage. The king had wanted calm. He had created rival centers of influence. Charles read the document access report without speaking. When he reached the final page, he removed his glasses and placed them beside the file. Why did 9 people need to see a personal note addressed to my wife? No one answered immediately. Charles wanted to believe Camilla had known nothing. He remembered the years when he had promised to protect her from humiliation and public rejection. Punishing her household would not look like a simple administrative decision. It could appear to question her legitimacy and reopen wounds both had spent years trying to close. William refused to let that fear decide the outcome. The prince told his father that Catherine's trust had been violated and her reputation deliberately damaged. Silence, he warned, would send a brutal message. Anyone inside the palace could attack his wife without consequence, provided they claimed to be protecting someone more senior. Then the investigation uncovered the hidden instruction. Camilla's senior communications aide had marked the scanned note for strategic handling. A communications aide manages media responses and public messaging for a royal household. The instruction recommended allowing selected journalists to hear that Catherine was pressing claims over the Queen's jewels. Its purpose was clear. The leak was designed to weaken her before future allocations were decided. Charles picked up his pen and signed the suspension order. His hand paused before the ink touched the page, because he knew the signature would be read as choosing his son's household over his wife's. Minutes later, another copy reached the press. This version came with palace emails suggesting Camilla knew her team planned to use the dispute publicly. Charles had tried to contain the betrayal with one signature, but the second leak transformed an internal scandal into a direct test of Camilla's honesty. By morning, the palace was no longer discussing jewels. It was discussing deception. Staff members stopped speaking freely in corridors. Phones were collected before meetings. Old allies began protecting themselves, and every deleted message suddenly mattered. Camilla faced the possibility that her closest advisors had sacrificed Catherine's reputation to strengthen her own position. Kate, meanwhile, discovered that winning the argument could still cost her the one thing she had tried to preserve: the family's trust. Charles ordered immediate restrictions across both royal households. Access to private correspondence was tightened, communications teams surrendered their devices, and every scheduled decision involving historic jewels was frozen. A royal household is the group of officials and staff who manage a senior royal's duties, messages, and public role. What had once looked like a disagreement between two women had become a crisis involving the machinery surrounding them. The public story changed just as quickly. Early headlines had portrayed Catherine as impatient and demanding. The second leak exposed missing paragraphs, internal instructions, and deliberate media handling. Suddenly, the question was not whether the princess had asked for too much. It was whether palace officials had manipulated her words to protect their own influence. Camilla summoned her senior secretary and asked one direct question: had her name been used to justify the campaign against Catherine? He hesitated. That pause told her everything. The queen consort understood that her authority had been borrowed by people who believed they were defending her. Catherine received messages of support, yet she felt no victory. She told William that she had wanted accountability, not the destruction of another household. The prince listened, but his expression hardened when he read the latest email. It stated that Camilla's team intended to correct the perception that Catherine holds priority. The wording did not prove the queen approved the leak, but it showed she knew a campaign was being considered. Camilla returned to the disputed necklace herself. She removed it from the evening's wardrobe selection, placed it back inside its case, and closed the lid slowly. Then she instructed her dresser that no historic jewel would be worn until the review ended. The deepest betrayal soon became clear. The communications advisor had exaggerated Catherine's demands when speaking to Camilla, then exaggerated the queen's anger when briefing journalists. Keeping both women suspicious had made him indispensable. William did not explode. He grew colder. He realized the palace rewarded advisors who created conflict, and then offered to control it. The aide was dismissed. Camilla's senior secretary resigned, accepting responsibility for allowing private words to become a weapon. That evening, Camilla sent Catherine one final request. No papers, no aides, no king between them. With the architects of the leak removed, only the two women remained, and neither could repair what had happened without admitting what she had feared from the beginning. The second meeting began without accusation. No folders lay on the table. No private secretaries waited outside with prepared statements. Catherine arrived alone, and Camilla dismissed even her personal attendant. For several seconds, neither woman spoke. Their battle over jewels had exposed something far more painful. One feared being pushed aside before her reign was over, while the other feared being diminished before hers had even begun. The turning point came when Camilla finally abandoned her defenses. Camilla had chosen a small sitting room instead of a formal audience chamber. An audience chamber is a ceremonial room used for official meetings, where rank and protocol shape every exchange. This conversation needed none of that. Catherine noticed immediately that the disputed jewels were absent. There were no velvet cases, no reference books, and no advisors waiting to explain what either woman had meant. Camilla asked for one agreement before they continued. Nothing said between them would be recorded, briefed to the press, or repeated by staff. Catherine accepted. For once, they would have to trust the very thing the leak had destroyed, each other's word. Camilla spoke first. She admitted that Catherine's popularity and future position had made her feel temporary. Every discussion of succession sounded like a reminder that the monarchy was already preparing for life beyond her. The queen consort had spent years fighting to be accepted, Yet now she feared becoming a bridge everyone crossed before forgetting who had carried them there. Catherine listened before offering her own truth. The reassigned necklace and brooch had made her feel erased. Each unexplained decision seemed like proof that Camilla intended to block her from the symbols connected to the next queen. She had not wanted immediate possession. She had wanted recognition that her future duties mattered. Camilla opened a drawer and removed the original handwritten note. She pushed it across the table and admitted that she should have answered Catherine herself before allowing advisors to interpret it. Then came the confession that mattered most. She knew her team planned to challenge what they viewed as Catherine's claim over the collection, but she had never authorized the leak. Her silence, however, had given them permission to go further. Catherine did not demand humiliation. She did not ask for Camilla's removal from future decisions. Instead, she proposed a written protocol forbidding palace staff from using private family correspondence as part of any media strategy. Camilla had expected surrender. She received a boundary. Her posture softened as Catherine's fury became controlled resolve. The women agreed that the disputed necklace would remain unworn at the next state event. Each would choose a different jewel associated with service rather than rank. Their agreement brought private peace, but outside the palace, the scandal was reaching its peak. The confrontation had ended behind closed doors. Yet beyond the gates, the leaked note had become a national argument over power, privacy, and who truly represented the crown's future. For 48 hours, Britain debated a private note it had never been meant to read. Some saw Catherine as a future queen defending tradition. Others saw Camilla as a woman protecting the dignity of her present role. But the public verdict shifted not because of another leaked paragraph or anonymous briefing. It shifted because of one carefully chosen appearance, one visible gesture, and one image outside Buckingham Palace that told a more powerful story than any headline. Broadcasters reconstructed the scandal hour by hour. They traced the handwritten note, the missing final paragraph, the suspended communications aid, and the resignation inside Camilla's household. Buckingham Palace then released a brief statement confirming that confidential correspondence had been mishandled and that new safeguards would control communication between royal offices. A royal household is the team of officials and staff responsible for managing a senior royal's duties, messages, and public image. The statement was restrained, but its meaning was severe. The palace accepted that the betrayal had come from within. One morning newspaper captured the anger more sharply. Its front page showed Catherine holding the leaked pages beneath 4 words. Her words, their weapon. The argument changed instantly. This was no longer simply a dispute over a necklace. It had become a story about private trust being twisted into institutional power. Outside Kensington Palace, a small crowd gathered behind the barriers. One woman held a handwritten sign reading, "Privacy is not disloyalty." Others left flowers, but there were no cruel messages aimed at Camilla. That restraint mattered to Catherine. She watched the coverage with growing discomfort and warned her staff not to encourage commentary, presenting one woman as victorious and the other as defeated. She wanted accountability, not revenge disguised as public support. Camilla felt the pressure differently. She feared that appearing beside Catherine would look staged, desperate, and false. For several minutes, the Queen Consort considered canceling their scheduled reception. Then she understood that absence would hand control back to the very people who had engineered the conflict. At an event honoring women in public service, Camilla paused before entering and allowed Catherine to walk beside her rather than behind. The princess briefly touched her arm. Neither woman wore the disputed jewels. Catherine chose a simple pearl brooch associated with quiet service. Camilla selected a modest piece from her own family rather than the royal collection. Without issuing another statement, both women sent the same message. The jewels would no longer speak for them. Public sympathy settled around Catherine's restraint, while cautious respect returned to Camilla for standing beside her after accepting responsibility. The palace had survived the headlines, but survival was not the final verdict. When the appearances ended and the display cases were locked again, judgment rested not on who wore the diamonds, but on who had found the strength to stop fighting for them. The leaked note was meant to weaken Catherine. Instead, it revealed the discipline beneath her silence. It was meant to protect Camilla's position. Instead, it forced her to confront the insecurity surrounding it. And it was meant to turn royal tradition into a weapon between two women. Instead, it exposed the advisors who profited from division. By the time the palace delivered its final decision, the diamonds had become almost irrelevant. What mattered was who had accepted responsibility and who had earned trust. Charles gathered Catherine and Camilla for a meeting. The king placed a communications protocol on the table, a rule controlling royal correspondence, then signed it. No personal note between senior royals could be copied, circulated, or used for public relations planning without written consent. He looked at both women and made the verdict clear. No household would protect one family member by damaging another. Charles confirmed that the royal collection, the jewels and ceremonial objects held, would remain under his control. Yet future decisions involving pieces linked to succession would require discussion with both women. The arrangement handed victory to neither. It ended the silence that had allowed courtiers to create rivalry. Catherine never asked to own the disputed necklace. Her victory was deeper. The palace recognized that her future role could not be managed around her, or reduced by competing aides. William understood. The prince saw that his wife had emerged stronger not because she defeated Camilla, but because she refused to turn betrayal into revenge. His confidence in her ability to carry the crown deepened. Camilla accepted a harder truth. Authority defended through secrecy becomes fragile. The queen consort kept her title and position, but dismissed the final advisor involved in circulating the note. Her redemption came through accountability, not denial. Months later, Camilla wore the diamond necklace at a state occasion with Catherine's agreement. The princess wore the sapphire brooch after the older royal recommended it. Before entering the reception, the queen asked whether Catherine was comfortable with the arrangement. Kate answered yes. The exchange lasted seconds, yet it carried the respect that should have existed from the beginning. The crisis ended an era in which rival households could manipulate private tensions for influence. Catherine's strength rested not in diamonds, but in restraint, boundaries, and duty. Camilla's place survived because she chose honesty over protection. The jewels returned to their cases. The note returned to Catherine. And the palace moved forward, under a rule born from betrayal. No crown can remain secure when trust is treated as something expendable. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.